Okay, hello everyone. I am Melissa Green, a Technology Accessibility Training Specialist with the Faculty Resource Center's Emerging Technology and Accessibility team. Welcome to this online learning opportunity for Technology Accessibility Liaisons. As mentioned in the event invitation, the purpose of these off-week Zoom meetings is to share the technical assistance provided during the biweekly accessibility meetings with those who were not in attendance. So either you're an accessibility liaison and you weren't able to make it to the biweekly meeting, or you are not an accessibility liaison, but your accessibility liaison has identified you as someone who might be in need of this information shared. So accessible documents were the topic of the technical assistance portion of the February 6th biweekly accessibility meeting. So if you did attend that meeting, this Zoom session will be a repeat. You are welcome to attend again as a refresher, or if that's news to you and you wish to exit at this time, no harm, no foul. As I mentioned, this meeting is being recorded and a link to the recording will be made available to all liaisons. What we talked about on the 6th and what we'll go over today is generating accessible PDFs from Microsoft Office using the Adobe Acrobat Pro DC Accessibility Checker, full check, to check the accessibility of a PDF generated from Microsoft Word, and then make accessibility fixes. And we'll also talk about using the Adobe Acrobat Pro DC Make Accessible Action Wizard to make a scanned file accessible. Before we talk about ensuring our PDFs and other documents are accessible, let's talk a bit about when to use PDFs in the first place. Portable document format, or PDF, is great for distributing documents that need to be printed. But it isn't often the best format for making information available online. One of the fundamental principles of web accessibility is that HTML content, or web-based content, will almost always be more accessible than non-HTML content, including PDF files. So before you create a PDF and distribute it campus-wide or post it to your public website, you might ask yourself these questions. Is the information meant to be read online? If so, if the primary distribution channel for the information is online, rendering that information as a web page rather than a PDF may be preferable. A web page can be opened in the browser without any special software or apps and displayed in a way that's responsive to the size of the screen. A web page contains navigation and easy access to other site content rather than a PDF, which kind of stands alone. A web page is easy to discover through search engines. The contents of a web page are easy to search, and a web page is easily shared with a link versus having to share files. Another question you might ask is this an application, survey, or form with fields that a user will fill out? Digital forms, or such as forms created using web form plugins, HTML coding, even Qualtrics or Google Forms, are often easier to create and collect data from. Will the information need to be updated frequently? If so, making the content available as a web page rather than a PDF means you can quickly access it and update it as often as needed, instead of having to find and edit a source document, save it as a new PDF, make accessibility fixes in Acrobat, delete the old version, then upload the new version and update any links to it. Finally, can the information be printed just as easily from a web page? Like PDFs, web pages can also be printed, especially when your site has a good print style sheet. So unless a document is intended for print, like a poster or a flyer, PDF may not be the best format. If you must use a PDF, though, you can ensure its contents are accessible by providing the contents in another format in addition to the PDF, So for example, providing the information on a web page with a link to the PDF included, and by creating that PDF with accessibility in mind. The first step in creating an accessible PDF from a Microsoft Office document is to ensure that the original Office document is accessible. The accessibility of the PDF depends on the accessibility of the source document. Creating a source document that is accessible from the start or correcting the accessibility issues in the source document is much easier than repairing an inaccessible PDF. Plus, each error you fix in a source document only has to be fixed once, as opposed to every time you generate a PDF. This is why if you have, or if you ever do, reach out to me regarding some help with the accessibility of a PDF, one of the first questions I'll ask is, can you share the source document? Before creating a PDF from Microsoft Office file, you should first evaluate the accessibility of that file. And one of the ways you can do this is by using the Microsoft Office Accessibility Checker. Like the Microsoft Office Spelling Checker tells you about possible spelling errors, Accessibility Checker in Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and Outlook on the web tells you about possible accessibility issues in your Office files. In newer versions of Office, you can access the Accessibility Checker via the Review tab, right alongside tools like the Thesaurus and the Spelling Checker and so on. In older versions, you can access the Accessibility Checker by going to File, Info, Check for Issues, Check Accessibility, and that's what we're going to take a look at now. So now I am sharing on the screen a Microsoft Word document that contains information about some of the traditions at the University of Alabama. It also contains a number of accessibility issues that will become clear when we use the Accessibility Checker. I'm going to do that now by going to File, Info, Check for Issues, Check Accessibility. After the Accessibility Checker inspects your content, it reports the inspection results in the right sidebar panel, categorizing them as errors, warnings, and in some cases, tips. If people with disabilities are unable to read content in the file, the Accessibility Checker classifies it as an error. Most of the errors in this document involve missing alternative text. So the error is missing alt text, and the instances in the document in which that error occurs are Picture 2, Picture 4, Table, Chart 6, and Picture 3. There's also an additional error, no header row specified, which occurs for one of the tables in the document. If the content in the file is difficult for people with disabilities to read or can't be evaluated using an automatic checker, it requires the review of a person, the Accessibility Checker gives a warning. So the warnings in this particular file include a link with unclear hyperlink text and two objects, pictures in this case, Picture 2 and Picture 4, that are not in line. And while it's not present for this particular document, when there is content that people with disabilities can read, but that could be better organized or could be presented in a way that can improve their experience, the checker may also offer some tips. So my favorite thing about this tool is that it not only indicates where there is a problem and why the problem presents an accessibility barrier, it also tells you how to fix it. So for example, under no header row specified error, I'm selecting table. And when I do that, the Accessibility Checker navigates me to the table where the error is occurring. And then at the bottom of the Accessibility Checker inspection results in the right sidebar, I get some additional information. So I'm told that I need to fix this error because a table header row contains column headings that provide context and aid navigation of the data in the table. So that information appears at the bottom of the sidebar under Why Fix. The checker goes on to explain the steps for fixing the error. How to fix. To specify a header row, select the table and highlight the top header rows. Let's do that now. And the checker actually already did that first step for us. Select the table and highlight the top header rows. Click on the Table Tools Layout tab. So up in the ribbon at the top of the screen, the Table Tools appear because a table is selected, and I'm selecting the Layout tab. And then step 3 under How to Fix. Click Repeat Header Rows in the data group to mark the selected rows as headers. So I'm about to click on Repeat Header Rows here in the data group. If you'll watch that error in the accessibility checker, you'll see that it disappears when I make that change. So now our no header row specified error is gone. So depending on what the error is, the information about how to fix it will vary, but generally speaking, this is great contextual help that walks you through exactly what you need to do to make your document more accessible. I should note that the accessibility checker isn't going to catch every single accessibility issue. No automated checker can, but it is a great resource. And I highly suggest, running it as the last step that you do before you convert a Microsoft Office file into a PDF or another format, or before you distribute that Microsoft Office file widely. So we don't have time to correct all of these warnings and errors, so I'm going to switch to a version of this file where all of these accessibility issues have already been addressed. So I'm opening that up now. So this is the same document. Although the accessibility issues have been addressed, the accessibility checker pane is still open from where I opened it previously, and you can see that no accessibility issues are found. I'm going to close that for now just to give us a little more room. This is the same document. Accessibility issues have been addressed. I'm going to open up a PDF version of this document that I created. So same document, but in PDF format. Just kind of talk through what it means when we say that a PDF is accessible. I'm opening up the Adobe Acrobat tag panel so that we can see the tags present in this document. So although there's a bit more to it than this, when people talk about accessible PDF files, they're usually referring to PDF files that have searchable, selectable text. So text that you can select with your mouse, copy and paste, or that you're able to search by using the search feature, and that have tags. Tags are the basis of an accessible PDF file. They indicate the structure of the document and communicate the order in which items in the document should be read. And they also determine exactly which items will be read. So tags are useful really to all PDF users, but particularly useful for users of assistive technology. So a user who is blind and is using a screen reader to navigate the contents, when tags are present, they can go directly to the content in which they're most interested. Along the same lines, if someone has limited or no use of their hands or arms and is using a switch to access and interact with digital content, again, having these tags present allows them to more effectively navigate through the document. So when you create a PDF from a Microsoft Word document, you want to do so in such a way that preserves the accessibility of the source document and includes actual searchable, selectable text and tags. So back over to my more accessible version of the Word document. This is the version where the accessibility issues have been addressed. We're going to use the Acrobat PDF Maker to convert this to a PDF. Now, when you install Adobe Acrobat Pro DC on your computer, Acrobat also installs an add-in called PDF Maker that enables you to create PDFs from within Microsoft Office files. When the PDF Maker add-in is enabled, a tab called Acrobat, which I'm hovering my mouse over now, a tab called Acrobat will appear alongside the other tabs in Microsoft Word, like Home, Insert, Design, and so on. This is what you want to use when generating a PDF document from your source files. So I'm selecting that Acrobat tab. When you click on the tab, it shows you all of the options available within the PDF Maker. In the Create Adobe PDF group, I'm selecting the Preferences button. These are the settings that are going to be used to generate the PDF file. There's a lot of options here and even more under Advanced Settings. I'm not going to go into any more detail about this except to point out this checkbox right here, Enable Accessibility and Reflow with a Tagged Adobe PDF. You want this to be checked. It likely is checked by default, but that's a setting you might want to check on your own computer before you next use this tool. Once you do check it, it should stay checked. Looking at this second checkbox here, Enable Advanced Tagging, you might assume that enabling this would make the tagging even better in some way. You know I did. Advanced has to be better, right? But I and people who do this on a full-time basis have found it preferable to not enable the second option because, and you might experiment with this on your own, but for the documents that I create, this ends up resulting in a lot of extra tags that I then have to remove. So I leave this unchecked. You probably want to leave it unchecked too. So once you've ensured that Enable Accessibility and Reflow with Tagged Adobe PDF is selected, you can click OK, and that defines your preferences for how the PDF file is going to be created. Those settings should stick, as I said, and you shouldn't have to check or change them each time you create a PDF from Office. To generate the PDF file, I'm going to click on the Create PDF button. I'm going to make sure that the file has a descriptive name, and then I'm paying attention to where I'm saving it. And I'm going to go ahead and save that now. I already have a version of this here, so I'm just adding a number 2 to distinguish between the two. And Acrobat is currently converting that Microsoft Office document to a PDF. And this is the PDF file that was created. Before we sort of look at this file in more detail, I also want to point out that there's another way that you can create a PDF from a Microsoft Office document, and that's from within Acrobat itself. So the way you would do that is by opening up Adobe Acrobat Pro DC and then going to File, Create, PDF from File, and you would then navigate to the Office file you wish to save as a PDF. I am working on a PC today, and the process for sorry, I'm just trying to advance to another slide. Here we go. I'm working on a PC today, and the process for using Acrobat to create a PDF from Word or Mac is very similar. You'll navigate to that Acrobat tab and then select Create PDF. However, and this is a weirdly quirky thing, while PowerPoint for Mac offers the ability to create a PDF from the Acrobat tab, the resulting PDF is not accessible. So instead, if you are using a Mac and you're using PowerPoint on a Mac and you want to save your PowerPoint as a PDF, you'll need to do that from within Acrobat using the steps I just showed. So within Acrobat, you would go to File, Create, PDF from File, and then navigate to that PowerPoint file. Whether you're working on a Windows machine or a Mac, there are two common approaches to creating PDFs that we do not recommend. First, avoid using print to PDF if your end goal is an accessible document. PDFs created through the print command may only preserve the text and images. The tags and other accessibility information may be lost. Second, when you're saving an Office file, you can choose from many different file types, including PDFs. We don't recommend creating PDFs in this way if you have Acrobat, because again, some of the accessibility information may be lost or converted incorrectly, making the resulting PDF less accessible and harder for you to review and repair in Acrobat. But if you must use the Save as PDF option, let me flip back over to that Word document to demonstrate this. So if you must use File, Save as PDF, this might be the case if, for example, you didn't have Acrobat installed on your computer. There's a setting that you should check. So I've selected PDF as the type of file I'd like to save. I'm now going to click on Options. And in the Options dialog box, I want to make sure that Document Structure Tags for Accessibility is checked. So Document Structure Tags for Accessibility is checked. And again, that just ensures that all the work you've done in Word or PowerPoint or Excel or Outlook on the web to make sure your document's accessible carries over to the resulting PDF. So following the processes we've outlined so far enables you to create a PDF that preserves the accessibility of the source document and includes tags. Now we're ready to use Acrobat Pro DC to review the resulting PDF and make any necessary touch-ups. Okay, so here's our Traditions PDF that I saved just a moment ago. Once you've created your PDF, there's typically a few touch-ups that need to be made to make that PDF fully accessible. Adobe Acrobat Pro DC offers two primary tools to assist content authors in creating accessible PDFs: the Accessibility Checker, Full Check, and the Make Accessible action. If working with PDFs is something you do regularly, you might want to make sure both of these tools are easily accessible from your Tools menu in Acrobat. So to do that, you can open up the Tools tab and search for and add them. So the two tools that I suggest adding are Accessibility. Just search for the word accessibility. I've already added it, so it's already present in the sidebar on the right side of my screen. But if I had not yet added it, the option I would get here is Add, similar to what we can see here for the Prepare Form tool. So you can add that. And the other one is Action Wizard. Again, I've already added that, it's already present, but if it was not, I would have the option to add it at this point. I use those on the daily, so they are not only added to my right sidebar, I've got them moved to up here at the top. Closing the Tools panel now and going back into the document. I'm opening the Accessibility Tools panel by selecting the Accessibility Tools panel icon from the right sidebar and selecting the Full Check command. You can use the Accessibility Full Check command to perform a thorough check for many characteristics of accessible PDFs, such as the use of alternative text on images. So that's text that describes the content and the function of the image. This check will also check for the presence of tags, the presence of document language, and fonts that can be mapped reliably to Unicode text. It's possible to choose which kinds of accessibility issues to look for in the full check by adjusting these accessibility checker options. There's also options for viewing and saving the results. I'm going to leave these as is, but I'm just going to point out to you, you have the ability to create an accessibility report. That's a feature you might want to use if you were evaluating or repairing PDFs for someone else. You might want to run this report and send it to them. You have the option of checking the accessibility of all of the pages in the document or just select pages. So you might use that if you'd already done quite a bit of work on a PDF and ended up just adding an additional page that you wanted to check. And you can adjust, again, which specific things are checked. This tool is the one I prefer to use in the scenario we've looked at so far. So a situation in which we have access to and the ability to change the source document. We've already taken steps to ensure that source document is as accessible as possible before creating a PDF using the Acrobat PDF Maker add-in. Let's go ahead and use the full check to check the accessibility of the Traditions PDF now. So I'm going to select Start Checking. The check will run, and after the report has been run, the issues that have been found are displayed in the Accessibility Checker panel in the left sidebar. So the results tree displays one of the following states for each rule check. So each rule check will either get passed, which is represented by a green check mark. That item passed the accessibility check. Passed manually, which we don't have an example of at this point, but that means that the item was marked as passed by manual inspection. Skipped by user. We don't have an example of that here, but that means the rule was not selected in the accessibility checker as something to look at. I'd suggest not using that. Needs manual check, which is represented here by the blue question mark. The full check feature may not be able to check every single item automatically. Some things have to be verified manually. For example, color contrast and logical reading order. I'll go into a little bit more detail about that in a moment. But those are things that require a human to review and therefore get the needs manual check icon. And then finally, failed result, represented by a red X. That's an item that did not pass the accessibility check. I'll collapse this again just to point out one thing here. So the results are divided into different categories. Issues that pertain to the entire document, issues that pertain to page content, pertain to forms, alternate text, tables, lists, headings. If there is an error in any given category, the name of that category is represented in bold and the number of issues is listed. So there are 3 issues in this document category and no issues in the other. And that just is a shortcut that prevents you from having to expand every single category to look at the results. So all of our issues are in this document category. I'm going to go ahead and expand it now. So our document got pass or needs manual check for every rule except title. So we're going to start with title, which is a failed check. To fix a failed check, you can right-click on the item in the accessibility checker panel, or on a Mac, control-click on that, and this will open up a context menu with several options. For some errors, not all, but for some, one of the options is fix. If you select fix, Acrobat will either fix the item automatically or display a dialog box prompting you to fix the item by entering information or making a choice. For example, a dialog might be displayed, allowing you to enter alternative text for an image. Skip rule is the next option that's available. That will deselect that rule in the accessibility checker. Again, I recommend against doing that if you are creating PDFs for public distribution. Explain opens the online help. I'll actually do that now. This will take you directly to the online help entry that pertains to that specific error. So the error we were getting was a fail for title, I selected Explain, and we're taken into the help file directly to the portion relating to title. And we're told that this reports whether there's a title in the Acrobat application title bar. And it goes on to explain, how we would actually fix this. To fix the title automatically, select Title, and so on, or to fix the title manually, and 4 steps are listed here. That's what I use most often. While I love it when fix is an option that's available, I'd be leading you astray if I said that it's present for most of the errors in Acrobat. So fix if it's there, explain if it's not, to kind of walk you through the steps of fixing something. You can use check again to check that particular issue again after you've made a change. Show reports to be taken to the accessibility report if you chose to generate that. And then options, which will open up your accessibility checker options dialog box where checking options can be set. So because we do have the fix option for this particular error, I'm going to select that. So this is an error you will always get when saving Microsoft Office files as PDFs using Acrobat PDF Maker add-in. For whatever reason, even if a title is present in the metadata of your Microsoft Office file, or obviously your Microsoft Office file has a file name, that does not get carried over to Acrobat as the actual title of the document. This one's pretty easy to fix. All we have to do is type a title into the title box. So I'm going to deselect Leave As Is so I can edit the contents of the title box, and then type in the title, University of Alabama Traditions. Optionally, I can fill in some of this other information, but the title is really all that's required to address the specific error. So entering that, I'll then select OK. And what was a red X for fail previously is now a green check for pass. Let's right-click on these other couple of issues reported in the document. First, logical reading order, which Acrobat flagged because it needs to be manually checked. So I'm right-clicking on logical reading order and choosing Explain to get some guidance on what logical reading order means. Not a lot of information. It tells us to verify this rule check manually, make sure that the reading order displayed in the tags panel coincides with the logical reading order of the document. Okay, so I'm going to go back over to my document and open up the tags panel. Again, tags provide sort of structure and navigation information for a document. We want to make sure that the order in which these tags appear matches the order in which a visual user might read the document or appear in a logical way. So there's a few different ways to do this. The way that I like to do it is by using the arrow keys on my keyboard to navigate up and down this list of tags, which is sometimes called the tag tree. So I'm going to select the topmost tag in the tag tree, the one that's just labeled tags, and then use the down arrow key on my keyboard to go down to the next tag, the section tag. So when I did that, the content in the document that is associated with this tag is outlined in blue. So I'm going to continue down the tag tree and watch the blue outline in my document to make sure that it goes in an order that makes sense. So the H1 tag corresponds with the title, University of Alabama Traditions. The next thing that would be read in the document is the alt text for this figure. The next thing that would be read is this paragraph that introduces the document. The next thing that would be read would be the second level heading, football. The next thing that would be read would be the third level heading, beginnings of football out of Alabama, and then some paragraphs. According to a November 25th, blah, 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 Alabama's first football game was played in Birmingham, blah, 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 and so on. So that is how you use the tag tree to verify the reading order of your document. If the reading order was not correct, you can click on a tag and move it to the correct location in the tag tree by clicking and dragging. Do you have to go through the entire tag tree for a document? No. I think it's reasonable to check, let's say, the first page of a document, perhaps the most representative page. So let's say that your document is mostly text or mostly text and images. You might pick a page or two that are structured in that way and check those. I also like to do a spot check of any pages that have special formatting, like a table of contents or a page with footnotes or endnotes. So something that's fairly representative, any pages with special formatting, I think that's a reasonable amount to check, rather than, tabbing through an entire, let's say, 100-page document. Another way to check reading order is to use the reading order tool, which I'm turning on now. Reading order problems are really apparent when you use this tool. So each piece of contiguous page content appears as a separate highlighted region and is numbered according to its placement in the reading order. If you're reviewing the reading order in this manner, you can then open the reading order panel, which I'm doing by clicking on reading order in the right sidebar, and drag the tags to reorder them as necessary. After reviewing and possibly correcting the reading order using Tags Panel or Reading Order Tool, you can go back over to Accessibility Checker and mark this as passed. So this is going to be our manual pass. So let's pretend that I've checked as much as I need to check in the document, and I'm now passing. And now that changes to a green check mark. Color contrast is also flagged as needing a manual check. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, the standards that we are striving to meet as a university, require specific contrast ratios for foreground text and background color, depending on font size and weight. There's a couple different tools you can use to ensure that your color combinations meet these color contrast ratios. And I'll send links to these to everyone who accepted the meeting invitation, as well as to everyone on the liaison list. And those are the WebAIM Color Contrast Checker and the Paciello Group's Color Contrast Analyzer. Those are both free. You can use them by entering in a combination of color codes or using an eyedropper tool to select a combination of colors. The tool will tell you if there's a sufficient color contrast between the foreground and background color. I know that the colors in my document meet WCAG 2.0 criteria for contrast. I checked that at the point that I created the Word document. So I'm going to right-click on this and choose Pass. So having made that change, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and run the check again, just to make sure I'm getting a passing result for everything. However, since there were only 3 issues, I can visually see that we're now meeting all their requirements. This version of the Traditions PDF represented a pretty common scenario, one in which we had access to a source document that was created with accessibility in mind, or where we were at least able to edit the source document to address accessibility barriers. But that isn't always the case. Sometimes the original source document is not available or is quite complex. And when that's the case, we may need to add accessibility features to the PDF using Acrobat Pro itself rather than making the changes in the source file. We're going to at least start doing that now. I want us to have at least 10 minutes for questions, and those of us who are attending the captions webinar to get over there. But I'm going to at least get you started addressing a more challenging document using the Make Accessible Action Wizard. So I'm closing this particular PDF file, and I'm opening up a scanned document. So this is a PDF document that looks like, just from looking at the font and the formatting, probably was originally created in Microsoft Word, but the original Word file has been lost to time. And what we have now is a scanned PDF. It does not have actual selectable text. If we tried to copy and paste, we wouldn't be able to do so. We're not able to search for text. It doesn't have any tags. So this is pretty darn inaccessible. One thing I make a point to do when I anticipate having to make quite a few accessibility changes to an existing PDF is to save a copy of that file before I get started. If the work gets quite complicated, I might even save at each step along the way. There are a few things worse than building out a tag tree or setting the reading order from scratch than accidentally overwriting your work. So I, just as a matter of good practice, am going to save a copy of this. I'm going to call it scan document working for my working copy. So I'm accessing the Make Accessible Action Wizard, which I added to my Tools sidebar. I'm selecting Action Wizard, and then from the Actions list, choosing Make Accessible. The Make Accessible action walks you through the steps required to make a PDF accessible. It prompts you to address accessibility issues, such as a missing document description or title. It looks for common elements that need further action, such as scanned text, form fields, tables, and images. And I'm going to use it now to start enhancing the accessibility of this PDF file. So I'm going to select the blue Start button to begin, and then follow the prompts. So first, I need to enter a title. The title I previously entered kind of stuck around, probably because I didn't close Acrobat. So I'm going to type in a better title now, Acrobat Pro DC, etc. Say OK. Next, I need to choose some settings for recognizing the actual text in the document. This is where Acrobat will run optical character recognition, or OCR, to convert the image of text into actual text. Document language, the document is primarily in English, so we're going to leave that as is. If it were primarily in another language, we would select that here. We want the output to be editable text and images. I'm going to leave the downsample to DPI as is. You might have different needs depending on the purpose of the PDF, but this works pretty well for me. So I'm going to say OK. And now Acrobat will convert the scanned page to editable text and images. Next, we're asked, is the document intended to be used as a fillable form? If we say yes, then Acrobat will try to detect form fields and create actual fillable form fields. This document is not intended to be used as a form, so I'm going to say no. Next, we'll set the reading language of the document. Screen readers, the piece of technology that's used to convert digital text to synthesize speech, load different sets of pronunciation and reading rules based on the language of content. So the same word might be pronounced differently in different languages, or the reading order in some languages might be from left to right and right to left in others. So here we want to set the reading language that's used in the majority of the document. If the document has more than one reading language, we can tag different regions of the document in the appropriate language. But here we select what the majority of the document is in, which is English. I'm going to say OK. Acrobat will then attempt to find figures or images within the document and let us know if there are any figures missing alternate text. There are no figures with missing alternate text. And then the final step is to run the accessibility check, which we previously accessed directly. So I'm going to choose Start Checking to run the accessibility check. And as you can see from the results, there's still a few touch-ups we need to make. Of course, we've got our 2 items that always require manual review, logical reading order, and color contrast. There's also an issue under headings, appropriate nesting failed. So we can click on this and go to explain for an explanation of the nature of that error and how to fix it. I've worked with this particular document before, so I know that the issue here is that the heading tags are not nested properly. Heading tags, H1, H2, H3, should be used in order, and this error is telling us that something's a little out of whack there. Likely that we're starting with an H2. We don't have time to delve into that in detail. But sort of in wrapping up and leaving a little bit of time for questions before those of us who are moving on to the captioning session, just to sort of reiterate the 2 different tools in Adobe Acrobat Pro DC. We've got the accessibility checker, full check, which is my preferred tool when I have access to a source document and have already done a good bit of work to make sure that source document is accessible. I know I just need to do a spot check and make sure my document is okay. I'd use that full checker. If I don't have access to the source document, or I know sort of from the get-go that I'm dealing with something complex, like something with a good number of tables or figures, or a scan of a scan of a scan, I might use that Make Accessible Action Wizard to make those changes instead. So I'm going to stop here with the sort of information sharing portion of this meeting. I hope that you found this useful and you won't hesitate to reach out to us if we can help you as you put what you learned into practice. You can contact our team by visiting accessibility@ua.edu. You're also welcome to reach out to us by emailing accessibility@ua.edu, or again, you can reach me directly. I'm Melissa Green, mfgreen1@ua.edu. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts to share? Feel free to share those in the chat or unmute your microphone and speak now. Okay, I see actually a comment from Greg in the chat. Greg, who was following along on his Mac and not seeing all the Acrobat buttons, just have Create PDF and Preferences. Yes, so Mac, Office for Mac does not have all of those various options at this point. It's just the Create PDF and the Preferences. Any other questions or thoughts to share? Okay, it doesn't appear that anyone oh, you're welcome, Greg. Greg said thanks for covering that. It doesn't appear that anyone is typing. I'm not sure if I would be able to see that or not using Zoom, but if you did have a question and I failed to address it, please, again, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm going to end this meeting now so that those of us who are participating in the Meaningful Captions meeting will have a chance to get over to that. I hope you found this information useful, and I'll be following up with a recording link and the resources that I shared. Thank you very much. Have a great one.